There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie first and then come back to this video. But if you have seen the movie, sit back and enjoy and, let me know your thoughts on the movie as well. Today we have, on the movies subreddit, official discussion, Dune Part 2. Paul breathes, Stilgar. Lisan al-Gaib! I wasn't ready for evangelical Javier Bardem, Paul's biggest hype man. For real, Javier is actually so funny in this film, laugh my ass off. He's so humble, as written. That was like a phenomenal piece to the movie. I really wasn't expecting to laugh during the movie, but every time the camera panned to Stilgar and he was like, as written, like this is exactly what was supposed to happen with everything Paul does. Lady Jessica getting increasingly more dripped out almost every time she's on screen was awesome. Yeah, it seemed like every time I saw her, she just had a new piece of drip on, whether it was like, a hat or like the stuff dangling over her face or the tattoos, the blue eyes, everything. It was just like every scene there was another addition to her. Jessica operating and maneuvering in the background while Paul ingrained himself to the Fremen was certainly masterfully done by the movie. She took on an ominous, almost villainous presence in almost all her scenes right after she drank the water of life. The only time she felt/sounded human was in her scene with Chani wishing her luck right before the big battle. Yeah, that was one thing that really caught my attention, is like you can really tell just how malicious Lady Jessica is when it comes to building out this whole scheme on getting everybody to believe that Paul is the chosen one, the Messiah, the prophet. Paul, will you please listen? I'm not the Mahdi. Stilgar, he's the Mahdi. Every time he says Lisan al-Gaib or he's the one whenever Paul did something, everyone in the theater was bursting to laughter, especially the line when he says, the Mahdi is too humble to say that he's the Mahdi, which means he's the Mahdi. Javier Bardem fully embraced the role. He really did. I mean, people were cracking up in the theater. The Mahdi is humble, as is written, killed with my crowd. Bardem did a fantastic job portraying blind, fanatical idealization, which is so important to the source material. I also love how Bardem's portrayal of Stilgar as the movie progressed became more and more fervent and fanatical. He started the movie as, maybe you're him, ultimately to, let me offer my life to you just so you can speak in this gathering. Yeah, he really went to like, yeah, there's a chance, you could be, you might not. All the way to him wanting to sacrifice his life just so Paul could speak to everybody. Absolutely insane. One of my favorite scenes was Paul using the voice against the Reverend Mother and the cut to Fade Rotha looking like, damn bro. It was well done. The little look of, respect dog. Also credit to the actress. She gives a brief glimpse of, oh, followed by the realization that she is outmatched and can't win this fight, and finally ends with calming herself and plotting. Charlotte Rampling is an incredible performer. I don't know if I've ever seen her in any other movies, but she definitely did a phenomenal job at making me hate her in this one, so I'd say she did a good job. One of my favorite details in this film is Giddy Prime. In the day, it is drenched in white and the fireworks are black, and in the night, the fireworks are white. That's a brilliant visual idea, and I love how the fireworks are like blots of ink. The ink blot fireworks were such a cool effect. The Colosseum scene was already making the planet so visually distinct, and then the fireworks continued to up the game. Yeah, they did a phenomenal job making it look very pale and just lifeless. Obviously all the people did a great job of that, but just having the black and white and just that for the planet, for Giddy Prime, was a phenomenal idea. The scenes of the Harkonnens on Giddy Prime are the best portrayal of a futuristic alien world I've ever seen due to how distinct and unlike reality they are. The way the planet is lit so harshly yet has a black sun that saps the color from everything, reducing the world to a diegetic grayscale, the complete lack of flora and fauna, the completely smooth and hairless inhabitants, and the horrifically beautiful black fireworks that are unlike anything I've ever seen all work so perfectly to create this unimaginably alien and inhuman environment. Absolutely astounding. That was a lot for me to read, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm struggling tonight. I loved Giddy Prime. The only color I noticed was a smidge of blue through the binoculars HUD of the blonde Bene Gesserit. What I missed was those weird spider mutant pet things from the first movie. I wanted more weird stuff like that. Although all the Black Hook people in the fighting pit were kind of weird. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this person's talking about like those weird, like demon looking people. Like they were all black and they had like hooks for hands. And I guess they were all circling around Fade Rotha and then that last guy standing who I guess wasn't drugged. So he was like still keeping up in the fight. And they were all surrounding them. They looked weird as hell. So it would have been cool to have more things like that. But at the same time, I feel like the whole planet is just boring and lifeless. And so to have like a lot more weird stuff like that, I feel like maybe might not fit the part. I don't know. I could be wrong. The scene where Paul walks in and tells everyone to shut the f up, I'm him, was awesome. Whole time he's basically saying, don't bring me down here, don't bring me down here. Bad things will happen if I go down there. We're bringing you down anyway. All right, in that case, bow down before me. That's what happens when you finally drink the Kool-Aid or worm juice. That worm juice will really make you, it'll make you insane. Fade Rotha's dream day. Unalive a few servants, achieve glory in gladiatorial arena, get put in charge of the most important planet in the Imperium, be subjected to unimaginable pain, get laid. 10 out of 10 would let Leah Seydoux manipulate my bloodline. Who's the real winner here? I mean, I guess he had it nice, I'm not gonna lie to you. Paul might just have it a little bit harder than him. Die like a bat, loser stuck genociding everyone else, probably wind up in Harkonnen in Valhalla after death. Yeah, what's the downside for him here? I don't see one. So he low-key might be the best villain in the movie. Just kidding. Minor detail, but I love the reflections of Arrakis on the underside of the Emperor's ship as it was landing. Also the nukes with the raining debris. This film did such a good job of expressing the scale of massive objects. Denis Villeneuve has always been great with portraying giant objects. See Blade Runner 2049. I didn't even know Denis directed Blade Runner 2049, but it makes sense though. I mean, we see Ana de Armas, you know, and that whole projected, you know, version of her, and it's like a massive portrayal of her. And like, I mean, he did a great job because you look at Ryan Gosling and then you look at Ana and it's like, whoa, that's a big Ana de Armas. You know what I mean? I had my reservations about Butler, but him doing a Stellan Skarsgård impression the entire time was wildly entertaining. I was worried he would come off as Austin Butler in large head makeup, but he was completely captivating. Butler really proved he's got the guts for a complex, eccentric role. I originally considered his casting pretty shoehorned for the sake of marketing when it was announced, but I'm happy to admit I was wrong. He was so good, and we always need a good weirdo. Austin Butler did do a pretty good job. Sometimes I feel like I look at Austin and in other movies and I almost look at him as like The Rock. You know, The Rock's just kind of like playing The Rock in other movies. But like now that I've seen this and I look back on other movies like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and other movies that he's been in, I see now that he's actually a good actor. The worm ride scenes were absolutely incredible. This whole movie was just stunning. I also would do whatever Florence Pugh told me to do. For me, it's Leah Seydoux, one of the most seductive actresses I've ever seen. How do they get off the worms once their ride is done? Probably just bail off them like you do a GTA car. So I was actually curious about this and I looked it up earlier today, and apparently the way that they get off the worms is they almost tire out the worms like you would a horse, and you essentially just run that horse all the way to exhaustion, and then you can hop off. So with the worm, I assume they just ride the worm until the worm literally can't move anymore, and then they just hop off. Simple as that. But in my head, before I looked that up, I was like, what do? Do they just jump off and then just dive into the sand and pray they don't, you know, break an arm? But it makes sense now. Grandfather stabs, you die like an animal. That has to be one of my favorite lines I've heard this decade. God damn, was that cold. That was a very cold line. I think my favorite was when he was like, silence! That was a good one. I thought Chalamet was too boyish for the first movie in the first half of this movie, but I was wrong. Extremely impressed with how genuinely authoritative and scary he seemed after drinking the poison, also known as worm piss. Great performance. Thinking about it now, perhaps Chalamet deliberately leaned into the boyish, humble portrayal extra hard until about halfway into this movie to illustrate the contrast. Villeneuve himself said he picked Chalamet because he comes off so young on camera, which is exactly what was needed in the first part of the story. Yeah, I feel like if you didn't have someone who came off really young on camera in part one, it would be so much harder to show the contrast between part one and part two and how much Paul Atreides changes after, you know, he drinks the poison. Like if you have somebody that on camera, they seem like they're like 28, 29, 30, and you have to tell that first part of the story and then portray just how much older and more mature and authoritative he becomes in part two, you're not gonna be able to do that. And I feel like genuinely, Timothy Charmander is like, he was top tier for this role. Like, I don't think you could have picked anybody better for this role. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, drop a like, you know, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.